Hey everyone, welcome to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. In the Mobile User Acquisition Show, we talk about how to use mobile user acquisition strategies to grow your app quickly and capital efficiently. The Mobile User Acquisition Show is presented by me, Shamant Rao, mobile growth leader and founder and CEO of the mobile growth consulting firm Rocketship HQ. Each episode includes strategies, tips, and pointers from the leading edge of mobile user acquisition that you can use to unlock tremendous growth for your app in a sustainable and capital efficient manner. Our guest today is Jorge Canga, the CMO at Ego Games and founder at Kaizen Internet. In today's episode, we dive into an aspect of mobile growth that seems to have defied complete automation: ad monetization. We look at how ad monetization works under the hood and understand why manual waterfall optimization can often outperform completely automated optimization. We explore other nuances and facets of ad monetization. Specifically, we get into what waterfalls are, how waterfalls are optimized, and why this can be so crucial to the ad monetization strategy for any app. Oftentimes, waterfall optimization can drive as much as 30% plus improvements in ARPDAU, and this can oftentimes break open a game or app's monetization strategy. All of this and more are details that I'm thrilled to get into in this episode. I'm very excited to welcome Jorge Canga to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. Jorge, welcome to this show.
Thank you very much, Saman, for having me. It's been a long time since we first discussed it, and thankfully we made it.
We did indeed. And you've certainly been recommended by quite a few people. So this has been exciting to have you. Also, we spoke a while ago, and I was definitely very, very impressed by the sheer breadth of work you've done. So I'm definitely excited to dive into one theme and topic that really is an area of particular expertise for you: ad monetization. And we're going to talk about how app developers can and should optimize their ad monetization stack, right? To start off, can you talk to us about what is mediation and why is this important to an app developer?
Yes, so hopefully this may sound like familiar to most of the app developers listening to the show. I hope it is. But an ad mediation is basically a piece of software that mobile app developers integrate within their portfolio of games or apps. And it is used to manage and optimize all the ad inventory by creating like a competitive environment where all the ad networks or supply partners compete for impressions in order to serve their advertisers' campaigns. So this fact of competition creates like an extra revenue for the publishers, because since like in any kind of competitive market, when there's more agents trying to get something, the price goes up. So
that makes sense. And this is perhaps a beginner question. And as somebody who's seen ad monetization from the outside, I'm curious, the way you describe mediation, how does it differ from an SDK? How does it differ from a programmatic exchange?
Okay, so like a mediation could have a programmatic exchange on it. But the thing is that nowadays the programmatic exchange in mobile apps is not as developed as in the web. There's like some people trying it, and I think the industry is evolving towards the programmatic, since it's like less hassle for marketers and app developers like to set up, and it is said to have best results. But the thing is that like within let's say a usual mediation, the difference between a programmatic ad exchange and a mediation is how the ad impression is served. So in a programmatic ad exchange, theoretically should be like all the supply partners at the same level, and then the ad request by a user comes in. So all the partners received like the request. So they say, do you want to bid for this user in this format, in this country, blah, blah, blah. And they say, yes, this is my bid. Yes, this is my bid. Yes, this is my bid. So the system takes in real time the bid that it's more profitable for the publisher.
Right.
But in the mobile app industry, is not the case because nobody is doing it right or hasn't like a perfect system. So right now, what publishers do is have all their supply partners integrated within a waterfall, and they have like ordered like the different partners depending on the country, depending on the ad format, and depending on the nature of the game, depending on several parameters, and they have it ordered like on a waterfall. So first, second, third, and only like when there's like a request from a user, the first partner gets the request, and if they don't like it, it comes to the second and comes to the third. So it's kind of this waterfall.
Right. And that's why the term waterfall, that's how it works. Thank you for explaining very simply how that's different from an exchange. And to the other part of my question, how is this different from an SDK?
Well, and both are an SDK because SDK is like a software development kit. So any kind of piece of code that you integrate within your app could be called an SDK or API, but normally it is through an SDK. So both like a programmatic ad exchange or a programmatic environment like header bidding could be through an SDK, and your ad mediation, it is from an SDK as well. The only thing is that within the ad mediation and the current situation for most of the publishers, you have like adapters for this SDK where all the networks are integrated. So if you have iron source mediation and you want to integrate uploading, then you need to integrate like an extra piece of code for uploading to get into that mediation, and so forth for the rest of the networks.
Right. So if you have a mediation layer, you need to add an adapter, but you don't necessarily need to add 5 or 6 SDKs separately.
Yeah, no, you can actually choose, and it is recommended to have like a wide variety of partners. There's like a lot of documents where they list like who is the best for this format in this country. So depending on where do you have the traffic from, you should integrate one or another. I would say you need to integrate at least 5, 6 partners to have like this competitive environment. So if you have a mediation and only have 2 partners, makes less sense. So you would need to integrate these adapters for all the networks that you want to plug in.
Right. So you want to have one mediation layer and 5 to 6 adapters or 5 to 6 supply sources that plug into the mediation layer, so that the mediation layer can actually prioritize 5 or 6 ad networks, programmatic exchanges, depending on the geo, depending on the priorities as may be set in the waterfall.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And you briefly described what a waterfall is, and you're like, look, that's how you prioritize, let's just say, different placements that could be interstitials, rewarded video, whatnot, different countries, different monetization levels.
Yep.
Why is it important to manually prioritize this? Why cannot this be done algorithmically? Like, you described how the programmatic world works. Why is it that it cannot be done algorithmically?
Yeah, I mean, it could potentially be done algorithmically. The thing is that not all the partners are prepared for this algorithm or algorithm buying. So, like I said, the only logic behind it is the technical capability of the supply sources. But it is important now that we don't have this header bidding like working full. We need to take advantage of the waterfall because it has like a direct impact in the revenues. The fact of not only selecting who comes first and second, you need to get a little bit deeper and try to set up some floors, meaning that target eCPM prices for each network, that you can actually have several ones per ad network or per supply source, because it is proven to increase the revenues of the publishers just by like a 30%. So like the main difference or the main advantage of using an ad mediation and having a waterfall is that you can get like or see a 30% increase in the revenues just by setting an ad mediation with manual priorities. But if you want to get like deeper into the ad monetization world, it is recommended to set eCPM targets. So these eCPM targets are actually a target that you set to the ad network that they need to like to hit. Otherwise, the request goes to the third or the second or so forth partner. So in this way, you can get also like a plus 30%, plus 25% uplift compared to having a normal mediation with a manual ordering without any CPM floors. That's the kind of the smart way to like to get away with ad monetization these days.
Right. So just so I understand, if you set an eCPM floor, you will get no impressions that are below this eCPM level.
Yep.
And you get a guarantee that, okay, let's say you set an eCPM floor of 10, you get a guarantee that every impression you get is over $10, which is the advantage over just having one partner, or without a mediation, you could get below 10, about 10, right? And the advantage of having a waterfall with a minimum eCPM is you're just getting guaranteed inventory.
Yeah, exactly. So it is because it's a way of forcing the supply partners to like to give you what you want. Because if you only have one partner, they can give you whatever they want, the first campaign, whatever. But if you force them to hit like a target, I mean, they can or cannot, but if they hit it, it's more revenue for you usually than having in auto. And if you repeat this process with all the partners, you are maximizing in this way the revenue that you can get from a single ad impression.
Right. And so you're like first place in the waterfall, is that the right terminology to use?
Yes, like the first call.
The first call in the waterfall has the highest eCPM.
Yep.
You get X number of impressions. The second call, you have a lower level of eCPM, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
And each call, is that for a separate placement geo? How is that, or is it just overall?
Yeah, like you must divide it between ad format, country, and then I mean an operative system, of course. So let's say you have Candy Crush, iOS, rewarded video, United States. So you have a waterfall, and then you have like Candy Crush, the same, but instead of United States, you have India or Brazil. So you have a different setup for each country or group of country if they have like kind of similar eCPMs.
Right. How many waterfalls do you recommend a developer set up? Or if that is the wrong question, how should they think about this?
Yeah, like you can have as many as you want, but sometimes it becomes crazy while optimizing because if you have like a lot of waterfalls and you have a lot of ad formats, it becomes a mess. And if it's like a one-man team, that could be like a one app developer that it's creating their games, and they have like no time for for this stuff. I would just group in like in tiers. Maybe United States goes separated, and then the English speaking markets, then kind of tier 1 European markets, then Latin America together, then Southeast Asia together, then the rich Asian countries, or Japan plus Korea. So depending on where do you have the traffic from, if like most of your traffic is coming from, let's say, Russia, then you should have like a waterfall specifically for this country, and one waterfall for each country and ad format. So I think that's the correct way. And also trying to add eCPM targets that we said before. It is a must if you want to get the most out of each ad impression. I mean, in bigger organizations where they have like a 5-team ad monetization guys, or maybe bigger publishers that they have more, it is obviously this is happening, and with a level of accuracy that it's like really impressive. But in the like if we talk to medium-sized sub developers, it is not always the case, and there's like people that they simply don't care. But like, why wouldn't you take like an extra $1,000 per month? You can optimize it on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, depending on the time that you have. But at least if you set it up, then you have the warranty that at least you're gonna make more money than if you just use one supply partner or just an mediation in autopilot.
Right. So it's almost like you look at the volume of impressions and you look at your target eCPM level in different geos. Then you set up, okay, how many waterfalls do I need to have?
Yep.
And just so I understand, let's just say the first call, you set $10 eCPM for rewarded video US. Does that have to be one single supply source, or can anybody, multiple supply sources fill that inventory?
Yeah, so like if it was like a programmatic thing, all would compete for the same, but given that it's a waterfall, you need to, let's say, you set up 3 eCPM targets per supply source. So if you have, just to make it simple, Facebook Audience Network, AdMob, and Unity Ads, you need to set like 3 eCPM targets for these 3 networks. So you would have, let's say, maybe in the United States is Facebook Audience Network first with 25, then comes AdMob with 22, then comes Unity with 21, then again comes Facebook, then again comes AdMob, then Unity, then the process goes over again. And then if nobody has meet these requests, then it goes to the normal waterfall, like the auto mode. So the mediation decides who deserves this impression.
Right. So the one that's bidding at 25 gets first sort of opportunity to serve the impression.
Yes.
That is still, and if not, the second one does.
Yep.
Right. And the first person's call, that's the first call in the waterfall. The second one's the second call, third's the third call. None of the 3 do, then it goes to the 4th call.
Exactly.
But each call represents one network.
One network and one eCPM target.
One network and one eCPM target. Okay, that makes sense. And this is a hypothetical question, right? You just described, okay, for Facebook, you have a eCPM target of 25, and maybe AppLovin, you have 23. What happens if AppLovin has an impression that comes in at 26?
Yeah.
Does it get first bid? Yeah. What happens?
Yeah. So that's like the routine of the ad monetization manager. So they need to analyze what is the fill rate and eCPM of each instance of the network. So if you say, let's take this case. So Facebook Audience Network has a fill rate of 1% at $25, but then the second call is AppLovin with 24, and they feel 50%, just to make it like very clear. So a smart ad monetization manager would say, okay, these guys are showing me that they have room for either yield more or potentially make more money for me. So what I would do, like in the testing round, is compare like how much I make if I put AppLovin first, and then I put like even a higher floor, let's say to 27 or to 30 or 35 or whatever the level that you want to set, and then analyze what is the fill rate at that eCPM target, and that's the way you optimize the waterfall. Like at the end of the day, how much are you making per ad impression?
Right. So that's an important trade-off, right? Because you could set your eCPM floor at $100, but you probably get 50 impressions, and you're just not making any money. Right. So there's always the trade-off between impressions and the fill rate. Right. Right. Are there other metrics that you recommend, an ad monetization manager look at on an ongoing basis to optimize the waterfall, to evaluate the health of the monetization stack?
Yeah. So first of all, I would not look into these parameters. I would rather see the ARPDAU as the key metric, like average revenue per daily active user, as the key metric to look at if we talk about ad monetization, because eCPM or fill rate per se doesn't mean anything. So you need to maybe like a 1% fill rate is, you could say, is low, but if 1% with an eCPM floor of 2 million could be a lot of money, instead of having a 2% with an eCPM floor of 20, because you will be getting more revenue. And the metric that you should look at is the ARPDAU instead of the fill rate and the eCPM, because people normally just say, okay, my eCPM is that, so I just pay attention to the eCPM and the fill rate, but at the end of the day, what matters is the ARPDAU, because it is tied to the LTV of your users, and that's the metric that you should be looking at.
Definitely, I think that's a useful reminder for people to keep their eye on the big picture, because it's easy to be fixated on just the eCPM or just the fill rate, right? Yeah. And how do the different ad placements play into this? One example I can think of is if there's an interstitial placement, that could be filled by a video or an interstitial banner. How do you recommend ad monetization managers think about prioritizing different placements?
That's kind of a deep question. So it depends on how the app or the game is designed, and ideally the ads must be part of the core loop. So that means it could eventually add some value to the user experience, but it'll be depending on the economics and the content pipeline of the games, because that's not always the case. Because like you said, like there are not only rewarded videos, but also interstitial that are not decided by the users when they want to see these kind of ads. So it is on developers' hand to say when and how often they show an interstitial. So if you have like a game with a small content pipeline, the recommendation would be try to be as aggressive as possible with the ads, because otherwise you won't monetize as good the users. Whereas other kind of general, let's say if we take hyper casuals versus an RPG or a real-time strategy, like hyper casuals, like due to the simplicity of their mechanics and their content pipeline, they cannot afford not to show ads or not to be aggressive or like doing it, because otherwise like their user acquisition won't be profitable. And on the other hand, like a real-time strategy or an RPG or a game with a bigger content pipeline where users can actually stay longer in day 30, retention could be higher. You don't need to place interstitials or banners, because they have like a higher percentage of paying users, so they can buy in-apps, but also include kind of rewarded videos or maybe like an offer wall. So these are like non-intrusive ad formats, and it is only upon user consent if they want to see an ad or not. So it depends like pretty much on the genre and the retention metrics, just to try to make financially sense like in all the ecosystem.
Yeah, right. And I think that's also a useful reminder for developers that their ad monetization strategy should be a function of the game's overall content pipeline, as you said, right? Because if it's super hyper casual, people are going to churn out very soon, no matter what. They can't afford to, not be aggressive, as you said. Yeah.
But yes, there's one thing there, because I've seen like some developers that are trying to get into the hyper casual world, but they are like, let's say, they love games and they want to produce like a good user experience. And I say, okay, you cannot do both. So you can do hyper casuals and pretend not to show ads, because you won't be profitable ever. So in order to try to maximize your efforts, you should treat the genre with the rules. So if we take like the idle genre, there's like a lot of people that builds the game around the concept of rewarded videos. Instead of anything else. Like they think like, how can I get people to watch more rewarded videos? And they make the game out of this. So I think one example of this is Future Play, game developer from Finland. They say in couple press notes, and I think in conferences as well, that they build the games around this particular element. This is rewarded video.
So they're like, okay, let's take rewarded video as a format and build games around that. Interesting. Certainly something that could be worth diving into on a different episode. And, you briefly touched on this, but how do you recommend thinking about ad monetization strategy and how it impacts retention and monetization. Right? For instance, right? So if you're showing interstitials, I imagine users clicking on that and going out of the game, that's going to hit your retention numbers,
Yep.
but it's also going to make you money. But if it hits your retention numbers, they're probably not going to buy an IAP. How should a developer think about this trade-off?
Yeah. So, well, there are like a couple ways to think about it, because if you have ads within your game,
Yeah,
chances are that your users can turn,
yeah,
because either they don't like the fact of seeing ads because it could be intrusive, but they could also turn because somebody has like a cool game or a cool app, so
yeah,
they click on the ad, install the game, and discover that it's amazing and they like it more, so then they don't play your game anymore, and
yeah,
this turn occurs.
yeah,
So that usually happens when there's like a competitor advertising within a concrete game. And
mhm,
there's like kind of two sides of the coin. There are studios that they blacklist their competitors like right off the bat, like
yeah,
whenever they launch the game, even prior to launching, they say, I don't want this, and this
yeah,
title to bid for my users.
yeah,
So, but I think the correct way to see or to consider this kind of turn because of competitors, it is looking at, I am making more money because they are advertising or not.
right,
So you need to look at this turn versus revenue ratio. And I can have like a good example here, because in one of the projects I worked, we saw like our eCPM like going like crazy high, like from 45 to 80 on average, like on a couple days, or I think it was for a period of a week. And then we realized like our retention in that country where we had the like these crazy CPMs was dropping. And then we discovered it was because like a competitor or a game with the same genre as ours was advertising and was making our users turn to their game.
right,
But and like our first thought was like, okay, let's blacklist these fuckers. But
yeah,
then we said, okay, why should we blacklist them if we are making like a lot of money just because of the
yeah,
eCPM that they are giving us, because their CPI bid is like really, really strong. And at the end of the day, like our users are making them money. So we analyzed this ratio and realized that it was actually profitable for us, like
yeah,
letting them advertise. And that's something like developers should look into. It's not like an easy thing like to look, but there are like some vendors in the industry that they can actually provide these kind of insights. So
yeah,
it is good to like to take a look at it if you are making a lot of money based on ad revenue. So you need to see, okay, it is profitable for me like to let these users go in exchange of a high CPM. And I think like for me, that I'm a marketer, business owner, so it is like I don't care. I want to make more money. I don't
yeah,
want to. I mean, I don't care if my competitors actually advertise on my game. Like,
yeah,
I don't care. Like, they are making me more money. Yes, okay, take my
yeah,
users. At
yeah,
the end of the day, it's like trading. So you need to trade them, uh,
yeah,
like on the most expensive way you can. So if
yeah,
it's profitable for you, like why not? And then the like kind of the second vision of this retention versus ad thing, it is trying to like to analyze what is the impact of the especially the intrusive ad formats like interstitials and banners, and what like if they hurt retention or not, and what are they producing financially in exchange.
right,
So let's say if you lost like a 3% in day one retention because you are showing a lot of interstitial, or your interstitial frequency is really high, but in exchange your ARPDAUs are 30% higher,
yeah,
like why wouldn't you be like even more aggressive or as aggressive, but
yeah,
considering that you need to find the balance between losing retention and making more money. And for me personally, more money weighs more.
exactly.
There's people that say like, okay, I don't want to produce bad experience, but again, like if we are here to make money, we should take the money. On the other hand, they could also produce like bad reviews.
Yeah,
So most of the hyper casual bad reviews, it is there's a lot of ads, spam, 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 blah blah blah. So if your rating overall goes below 4, then could have effects to the ASO as well. So at the end of the day, it's like a complex thing, but I think the right way to approach it is just test it. So you should be able to test any kind of variable that is related to making more or less money.
Indeed, indeed. As you said, it's important to keep your eye on the big picture, not just say, oh, this is my competitor not doing it,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, what is your ultimate goal? And I would say, and I would 100% agree that there's always going to be a trade-off between retention and monetization, right? And, there's no one single answer, but you need to figure out what's going to meet your eventual goals.
Yep.
Yeah. Jorge, this has been incredibly instructive. I've learned a ton. Thank you for going into everything in ad monetization in so much depth and detail. And thank you for being a guest on the Mobile User Acquisition Show.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and it's been my pleasure. And I hope like somebody can get two things out of this and actually improve their businesses. So that'd be awesome. And congratulations for this show. It is always like very instructive with knowledgeable people. So I'm very proud to be part of it. And thank you very much again for inviting me, and talk to you soon.
Wonderful.
For more tips, pointers, and strategies from the leading edge of mobile user acquisition, subscribe to our YouTube channel right here, or check out our blog, rocketship.hq.com/blog. Thank you.